So to continue this conversation, we're going to bring in the Foundation for the Defense of Democracy China program, Jack Burnham, as well as the former military representative to NATO, Brigadier General Blaine Holt. Good morning, gentlemen. General, I want to start with you and just continue the conversation that our reporter Jody Cohen was talking about there. Of course, President Trump issuing that 4 p.m. Eastern time deadline for Hamas to return the bodies of the remaining murdered hostages. Do you think that'll happen? I mean, what do you think is going to happen here? Will they meet that deadline?
I don't think they're going to meet that deadline at all. They've been disingenuous the entire time, Alex. But what I think this leads to is the understanding that since Hamas has breached the agreement, then that means that the current terms of the agreement are not binding for the IDF or Israel. And so what I think we can see, even though there is some signs now that the Arab nations are going to start to put folks on the ground, we're going to see a return to military operations as they go seek, kill, and destroy the remnants of what is Hamas. And then you also saw in the news recently the hit in Qatar, again, another strike. So it's heating up again, but it doesn't mean that overall this agreement is going to go away and go to the trash. It just means that Hamas is insisting on being an impediment because really there's no way out of this alive for them.
Yeah, again, none of that I don't think is shocking to anyone considering they are a terrorist organization that we are dealing with. But so let's turn now to the president landing in Tokyo. So there's word of a breakthrough trade agreement that President Trump will reveal with Chinese President Xi Jinping and South Korea Thursday. Let's take a listen.
I would love China to help us out with Russia. We put very big sanctions on Russia. I think those sanctions are going to be, they're very biting, they're very strong. But I'd like to see China help us out. I have a good relationship with, as you know, President Xi.
All right, Jack, to you on this one. Do you think that the Chinese will abandon their longtime Russian ally and help Ukraine's ceasefire efforts by embargoing Russian oil? Do you see that happening?
I certainly think it's unlikely. Throughout this war, China has absolutely fueled the Russian war machine, both through oil purchases, supplying exports to the Russian economy, giving particular dual-use military goods, advanced microelectronics. China has been the key, along with Iran and North Korea, to allowing Moscow to continue its war, and it seems very unlikely at this stage that China will be willing to at least substantially pull back.
Yeah. Well, General, Secretary of Treasury Scott Bessent signaling that a major trade agreement with the Chinese is at hand. Let's take a listen to that.
I believe that we have the framework for the two leaders to have a very productive meeting for both sides, and I think it will be fantastic for U.S. citizens, for U.S. farmers, and for our country in general.
Yeah, General, we're hearing a lot of things on the docket here. We've got TikTok, we've got the soybean purchases, we've got the rare earth minerals. What do you make of this potential trade deal that we may see this week?
So he did his job. The secretary provided him with a framework. And the framework is something you can discuss. But quite honestly, the president has every single card he needs to really hammer the Chinese on a variety of issues, not just limited there. What about PLA soldiers that are in our nation right now embedded from the 4 years of open borders? What about fentanyl? What about Confucius Institutes? What about co-option and infiltration of our government at varying levels and in our institutions? So Xi Jinping is coming off of a fourth plenum Congress where he comes out very weak and indeterminate for how long he can stay in power with the factional fighting and a China that's going into depression. So the president should step on the gas here, and maybe they don't come out with an agreement, but that won't work for China. That certainly won't work for the regime.
Yeah, Jack, do you agree with General's sentiments here when it comes to the talks this week and the potential trade deal, et cetera?
I certainly think it's the case that this has been a cycle. There's been a cycle of both President Trump and Secretary Xi pushing up to the limit before eventually pulling back. And I think it may be a similar case here in which the Chinese put out a rare earth regime that seems to be more the case of a signaling matter rather than something that they're very interested in doing. Same with the president having put on and put off tariffs repeatedly. I think the bigger cycle here is that President Trump, having signed multiple trade deals with ASEAN countries coming into the summit, will be able to showcase American strength and power in the region, particularly by bringing prosperity and peace across many of the United States' allies and partners. Right now, he's in Japan. He'll be visiting South Korea, and he's already been in Malaysia and really signed a lot of deals that will strengthen America's economic heft when he meets with Xi.
Yeah, and you bring up such an important point there, General. How big of an achievement is this? We saw that brokering the peace treaty between Thailand and Cambodia. What kind of achievement is that we're seeing?
No, that's a big achievement, but back to China. Right now, President Trump has the opportunity to break the Chinese Communist Party in half, and he's doing it with his war on the cartels and their undue influence from Canada all the way to the tip of Ushuaia in our hemisphere. So things are on track, and I just hope that he exacts what we need out of China to start a more fair, productive relationship.
Yeah, again, a big meeting potentially Thursday. But Jack Burnham and General Blaine Holt, gentlemen, really appreciate your time this morning.
Take care.